Hello everyone, Chris here, and today we will talk about the solo queue experience. Even though I'm a killer main, I like to dabble with some survivor now and then, and mostly we are talking solo queue. Now, it's no secret that solo queue can be a real pain, and often you hear about the solo queue experience, where everything just falls apart or you're left to die on your first hook. Today I'm going to give you a few pointers, a list so to speak, of tips on how you can make this solo queue experience a little better. Now, these are not tips or pointers that will solve the whole solo queue experience, but it might make it easier for you to deal with it. And most of these tips are more or less revolved around keeping your sanity while playing solo queue. But without any further delay, let's get right into the list. Number 1. Expectations. For your own well-being, don't expect everything to go as planned in a solo queue match. Don't expect survivors to do the things that would make the most sense in your head, and don't expect the survivors to know what you think or what you are doing during the match. Focus on doing your part and play as well as you can, and the rest you have no control over. And the things that you have no control over is not worth spending time or energy on. I feel this tip is really important for your own mental health, as it's very easy to get really annoyed or frustrated when playing solo queue in Dead by Daylight. Number 2. Try to bring at least one perk that gives some sort of benefit to the entire group. That could be Kindred, Reassurance, Will Make It, or Prove Thyself, or perks like Bond or Empathy that lets you know where the other survivors are. Bring some perks that will help you in the chases as well, but try to bring one that benefits you all. And this brings us right into number 3. Communicate in the pre-game chat. Tell if you are bringing any specific perks that might be useful for the team to know. Tell them if you are doing some sort of tome challenge, so they know why you might be acting like a doo-doo head trying to blind the killer 8 times in a match, for example. In my experience, doing just a tiny bit of bonding with the group in the pre-game chat can affect how you play together in the match. This will of course not work for people who play on console, but for those who can communicate, I recommend doing it. Number 4. Try to be aware of which gens you do. If you complete a gen just to run to the next closest gen you see and complete that one, then keep going, is a really big chance that you will end up 3-genning yourself. By 3-genning, one means that you will end up with the last 3 gens in such a small distance between them that, in some cases, it will be next to impossible for you to win. It's always advisable to do the gens in the middle of the map, if there is any. If not, when you complete a gen, try to prevent it doing the very next gen closest to it. The same, if you see a gen that is all the way in the outskirts of the map, then maybe wait with that one till the very end. Number 5. If you are being chased by the killer, try to prevent running into the other survivors doing gens. If you hear a gen is being repaired, then change direction and run somewhere else. This is a case where perks like Bond is really helpful. Even if it means you will be going down, but keep the survivors working on the gens uninterrupted, it might still be worth it. If you can, try to bring the killer to an area where there are no gens at all, like gens that have been already completed. This will give your team even more time, as you and the killer will be further away from the group. Number 6. This might be a weird one and might sound counterproductive, but splitting up might in most cases be the best strategy. You'll have a lot more pressure on the killer if you are doing 4 separate gens than 3 survivors on the same gen. As I explained in another YouTube shorts, since you receive a progression penalty for every survivor working on the same gen, it's actually more efficient to do the gens alone than with other survivors. Prove Thyself will even out this penalty though, but still, it's not advised to have more than 2 survivors on a gen at max. Number 7. And this comes from the bottom of my heart. By the love of everything that is good, don't DC, and don't give up. Even if you have a rough start, it's always possible to turn it around. If you give up or DC, you only end up ruining the game for 3 other survivors, as it's more than often impossible to win a 3 versus 1 if you give up or DC in the early game. I beg you, for the respect of your teammates, stop DCing or giving up from the very start, just because something didn't go your way. And that leads us right into number 8. I recommend having some sort of team mentality, as you need to work together as a survivor to escape the trial. If a survivor is on the hook and you are the only one who haven't been hooked once or the only one not injured, you should probably go for the save. Is someone on death hook being chased by the killer and you are still not hooked or on your first hook, maybe consider taking the chase so the survivor can escape. In my opinion, keeping 4 survivors in the trial for as long as possible is the absolute best way to go, as escaping is much easier with 4 survivors alive than only 3. Be willing to risk something if a survivor is on death hook and you see they are getting chased or is already downed. Number 9. Snowballing. This refers to the process where the killer starts getting the upper hand in the game. And in my opinion, often this is a result of survivor mistakes, unless we of course talk about killers that can easily get the snowball running, like nurses or blights. What I mean is, let's picture a perfect scenario. You are all 4 doing separate gens. The killer can only chase one of you at a time. The survivor who is chased has bond and avoids running into the other survivors. Eventually the survivor goes down and gets hooked. This survivor also has kindred, so now everyone can see what everyone is doing. As you are all almost finished completing your gens, you'll leave the survivor hanging a bit, as you still got 1 minute before they reach stage 2. With kindred, you see someone going for the rescue, so you go to find another gen, so does one other survivor. This is how you keep the pressure on the killer. Now let's picture a completely different scenario. You all start the trial together and start preparing the same gen. The killer comes and chases everyone away from the gen. One of the survivors goes down while the other 3 went back to the same gen. It's still not completed when the survivor is hooked and the killer comes back to the same gen. The survivors spread out, and since the survivor don't have kindred, you end up with all 3 of you going for the save and no one is doing gens. One of you go down during the rescue and there you have it. The snowball is rolling for the killer and it's extremely hard to turn this around. But it is possible. Hopefully this video did give you some good tips on how to deal with solo queue and how you can contribute to making it better for both you and everyone else. I do know that solo queue can be really frustrating and can over time be a strain on your mental health, so I do hope some of these tips might make it easier for you to deal with this. And as a last tip, I recommend going into the game with this mentality, no matter if other people share this mentality or not. Be positive. Be a team player. Do your part to make the game a good experience for everyone, because if you don't, then who will? And yeah, that's the list. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, cheerio!